back in 2018, before I started regularly making YouTube videos, I had a lot of ideas for videos I wanted to make one day. And a lot of them I never ended up making. But one that always, for some reason, I always wanted to make as a kid was ranking all the Pixar movies. And now that Toy Story 5 is out, I think now is the time to finally make that video. Now you'd probably think, why, if I wanted to make it for so long, have I never made it? Well, I actually did make it. Back in 2021, however, it was really bad, and no, I'm privating those videos. You guys can't watch them; they're too terrible quality. But yeah. Other than my terrible attempt to do it as a kid, and the fact that Pixar has 31 films as of right now, some of which are really good, some of which are really bad. Actually, most of them are pretty good. There's only like 4 bad movies they've made. But yeah, I've decided now, because I have a little bit of time off from work. You know what? Let's try to make this video. So today, I am going to rank all 31 Pixar movies. Oh god. And this is the definitive list. You can't argue with it, obviously. Bruh. Good luck trying to. Yeah, let's just get into this. Let's just get these bad movies out of the way.
You are coping and seething.
Oh god, this movie's so bad. Yeah, I bet you weren't expecting this as my pick for Pixar's worst, but Turning Red is astonishingly bad. I know nearly everybody believes Pixar's worst movie is Cars 2. I couldn't disagree with that more, but we'll talk more about Cars 2 later. It's not even in my bottom 10. Sorry, guys. I honestly don't want to give Turning Red even a couple brain cells worth of thought, because to be completely honest, that'd be more effort than what was actually put into this movie. If you really want to hear me rant about Turning Red, I've linked my Letterboxd in the description with my full list that will be featured in this video, as well as some reviews I have of those Pixar films you can find on there. But yeah, Turning Red is so bad. The only word I can use to describe this film is cringe. And I hate using that word to describe a movie, but that's literally all there is to find within Turning Red. Alright, to be somewhat fair here, I'll give a couple actual criticisms of the movie. But I think the main problems are tonal issues. The most blatant one I can figure out is how the final battle is, after this movie's been trying to convey a serious tone, they make the final battle somewhat comical. That always felt off to me. My second problem is May's mom. She doesn't really have a redemption moment. She's just kind of a terrible character. An unlikable character as well. Problem number 3, I think the plot is very derivative. I think it's way too similar to Finding Nemo without actually improving on anything Finding Nemo did. And number 4, kind of back to the cringe thing, this movie's very, very painful for me to watch. I barely finished this film when I gave it a chance back in 2022. Yeah, Turning Red is a very hard movie to watch. I have so many problems with it. Please read my Letterboxd review if you really want some in-depth analysis, because I wrote that when I actually watched the film like 4 years ago now. But yeah, Turning Red is easily the worst Pixar movie ever made for me.
Duke kaboom!
Honestly, if Toy Story 4 was not actually a Toy Story movie, and you maybe swapped around characters to make it a different type of story, I actually wouldn't mind it that much. The problem is, this is Toy Story 4. And the entire point of Toy Story 4 is essentially just saying, hey, remember everything we worked towards in the first 3 films? Throw it all out. None of that matters. Forget loyalty. Forget sticking as a family. Forget the themes of Toy Story 3 and Toy Story 2. Toy Story 4 is just the forget everything movie, and I hate it. And no, I'm not putting Toy Story 4 second to last because it ruins 3's ending. Actually, I loved Toy Story 5. It's way higher on the list. So that is not the issue here. The issue is that Toy Story 4's entire theme is forget everything about the first 3 films. And that just is unacceptable to me. Because of that, Toy Story 4 finds itself second to last on my list. I will give it some credit, though. It has some pretty good jokes. I thought Duck and Bunny were pretty funny in parts. And Duke Kaboom is actually probably one of my favorite characters in the whole franchise. Which is unfortunate because he's stuck in this movie for the most part and only makes a brief appearance in 5. But yeah, Toy Story 4, just not my cup of tea.
Well, that's just grand now, isn't it?
Let's get the obvious out of the way. This point's been driven to death, but I'll say it anyway. Brave's trailers were very misleading. So that was kind of an issue I had when I first watched it over a decade ago, jeez. But I'll give credit where credit's due. The archery scene's really good. Other than that, this movie is very forgettable, and that's why it finds itself this low on the list. I don't hate Brave or anything. I just think it's kind of bad because it had a lot of potential to be something really good, and in the end, it just became a forgettable, not really worth watching mess almost. There's parts of it that are really good. Again, I think the archery scene in particular is really good. I think that this film kept its original director. There could have been a much better end product than what we ended up with. Brave's okay, teetering on bad. I just don't think it's anything all that special, so that's why it finds itself this low on the list.
But what Andy gets another dinosaur? A mean one. I just don't think I can take that kind of rejection.
The Good Dinosaur might as well have been a sequel to Brave, because it has the exact same problem as Brave. It is incredibly forgetful, incredibly boring, and quite honestly, I don't think it's worth anybody's time watching, because there's nothing all that special in this movie. I think it is a really good question to set up the premise of the movie. The question being, what if the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs misses? And they don't really do anything with that. They just say, oh, well, fate catches up with them anyway. They're all dying out. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter the asteroid missed. Which, I mean, I guess it's somewhat realistic. But the fact is that, you know, it's not really that interesting of a movie. I really don't have a lot to say about The Good Dinosaur. It's just kind of boring. There's some scenes in this where it's screaming at you to feel something, and I just don't. Yeah, it's okay. I don't think it's worth anybody's time, though. Clearly, production was not kind to Elio, as there was quite a big gap in between its initial teaser and actual release. I think this clearly went through a lot of production issues, so the end product is probably nowhere near the same as what Pixar envisioned in the beginning, but I gotta review the end product of Elio, and the end product, it's okay. I saw little to no marketing for Elio before it actually came out, and that probably justifies why it bombed at the box office. The characters weren't all that great. The story's fine. Nothing too exciting. Elio himself was kind of annoying for like almost the entire movie, but I guess he was okay in the end. I really don't know what else to say about Elio here. It's fine. I just don't think it's anything all that special. And considering the output of Pixar as a whole, if you're not all that special, you're not going to make it too high on this list.
You're breaking ranks, Ranger.
If you think that Toy Story 4 or Toy Story 5 is a cash grab, let me introduce you to a little film called Lightyear, a film that bombed in the box office and barely anybody watched. I watched it. It's really bad. It retcons a lot of the stuff that we learned about Zurg in Toy Story 2, which I guess is fine, except for the fact that this movie kind of sucks. It's really boring, and I have a very hard time believing that a kid would have loved this movie so much that they'd want to get a Buzz Lightyear toy. As this is the point of this movie is to show you that Buzz Lightyear's movie was so cool that Andy really wanted a Buzz Lightyear toy. This movie is so bad and so forgettable, I have genuinely no clue how anybody in this Toy Story universe would have wanted a Buzz Lightyear toy. Yeah, it's not very good. I thought Socks the cat was pretty cool, but that's really the only thing I liked about this movie too much. It's okay. Nothing special. It's very low quality compared to you would think a Buzz Lightyear movie would be a good idea, and I think it is a good idea. I just think the execution here is terrible.
Circus cars! How can you be circus cars?
Starting here, we're finally moving into some good quality, all solid 6 out of 10 films from here on out. And here we are with A Bug's Life, and it's a pretty good movie. I especially like the villain here. Hopper's a very good villain. He's actually probably one of the better ones Pixar's ever done. He's really the shining star of this movie, honestly. This is the only Pixar movie I can think of where the villain just steals the show, where the other characters, they're alright. I don't really have too much to say about A Bug's Life. I find it funny. This is not one I grew up with at all. I never watched it as a kid. But I really loved the scene where he gets crushed at the end of Toy Story 2.
It's a 2 movie, but it's not A Bug's Life 2.
Well, then what, I don't understand. What is it then?
Yeah, that part at the end of Toy Story 2 is one of my favorite scenes in the movie as a kid. And Toy Story 2 is a movie we will discuss way, way further along on this list. But yeah, A Bug's Life's pretty good for what it is. The first of what could be many very hot takes on this list, except for the fact that I haven't placed Cars 2 yet. I'm sorry, guys. I've got a good explanation for it later. But yeah, Up is kind of a weird one. For some reason, a lot of people think Up is in the top 5 Pixar movies. I've just never felt that way. And that's because I think Up has a very good opening 10 minutes. A very good scene towards the end of the film where Carl's looking through the diary. Both of those moments make me cry a little bit. However, the rest of the film is filled up with filler, junk, and a pretty forgettable story. I have trouble recalling details from this movie, and I've watched it like 5 times. Like, Up is a good movie, but it's not good enough to have many scenes that are easy to remember or really leave much of an impact outside of those opening 10 minutes. It's an alright movie. I do understand why people might rank it higher just because of the emotional factor of those few scenes alone. But for me, Up is just not quite up to par with Pixar's best.
I'm insane in the membrane. Insane in the membrane.
I apologize if it feels like I'm going through a lot of these films way too fast, but there's a lot of films to cover and not a lot of time to do it. And a lot of time editing needed, so I gotta be somewhat quick. Inside Out is a very creative film. I think it's a good showcase of a bunch of creative ideas with how it portrays dreams as movie productions, all the stuff they do in Imagination Land. I do think this movie has a lot of really good ideas overall, and I think the sequel actually does a really good job of capitalizing off of what this movie sets up and doing some stuff even better. So you will see Inside Out 2 a little bit further along on this list. My problem with the first Inside Out, at this point, I do actually consider rewatchability and how rewatchable a film is, and Inside Out is probably Pixar's least rewatchable film, so that's why I have it kind of low here. I don't know, the story is kind of annoying, honestly. Like, it's just inconvenience after inconvenience after inconvenience that could have ended the plot of this film in like 10 minutes. Like, there's so many parts where they really should just get back into the brain and they don't, and it kind of pisses me off the more I rewatch the film. So because of that, Inside Out finds itself a little bit low on the list, but it's still a pretty good movie.
You must die by my hand!
Yeah, Soul is a film that I really don't have a lot to say about. I thought it was pretty good when I watched it. Yep. I mean, look, I had two main worries about Soul when I was first watching it. One, from the trailers, I thought 22 was going to be a very annoying character, and two, when I was watching the movie, I was worried that this whole Joe as a cat thing was going to probably diminish the film. The moment I saw that happen, I was like, oh, no. Thankfully, both of these worries were proven wrong when watching the film. Joe's a very likable character. You want to see him succeed. And 22, he's far from the funniest Pixar character, but you know what? She's okay. And the both the Nix and the Lincoln jokes worked pretty well, I thought. Either way, the main thing preventing me from putting this film any higher is the plot feels very loose, for lack of a better word, and that made the film messy. Nonetheless, I think Soul's a pretty good film with some really good moments. In fact, maybe with time I could find myself placing it even higher on the list, but this is where it lands for now, I suppose. Luca, the final installment of the Pixar films EH66 doesn't have a lot to say about group. And I don't have a lot to say about Luca. I think it's a pretty good film. The film has really good characters, and I think the pasta is extremely well animated. That makes me really want to eat pasta, so I'll give credit where credit is due for that. It's not one of my favorites Pixar's ever made. I mean, if you compare this to Ratatouille or The Incredibles, I think it's completely outmatched, which is why it's kind of down here. But, you know, it's a charming movie for what it is. I do like how the villain in it, in particular, is just comically evil, because this came around at the time when Pixar was just obsessed with twist villains. So having a villain like this in Luca, I thought that was pretty good. Yeah, not a lot to say about Luca. It's pretty good. Moving on.
And the Oscar goes to... It's a tie.
Bruh.
I'm not joking. It's actually a tie.
Uh-oh. Yeah, no. Hoppers and Elemental are both about equal quality to me, and I cannot for the life of me make a permanent decision on which one of those films is actually the better film. So I'm tying it, kind of. If you had to make me pick, I'd say Elemental is a smidge, and I do preface this, a smidge better than Hoppers. But yeah, I think they're both very solid 7 out of 10s, which is crazy. We're in 20th and 19th place on the Pixar ranking list, and it's all 7 out of 10s and up from here, which is crazy for a studio. So all these films deserve to be commended. But yeah, Hoppers and Elemental are a tie for me, kind of. Like I said, I think Elemental is slightly better. I'll talk about Hoppers first. Hoppers is obviously one of their newer films. I thought Hoppers had a very strong ending. In fact, it's probably one of the best endings I've seen from Pixar in a long while, but the rest of it I just thought was pretty good. There's some really funny comedy throughout, and it doesn't even really feel like a Pixar movie, which is not a detriment to it. I think that works in its favor. But yeah, it's definitely one of their more unique films, I would say, in terms of writing, pacing, and comedy. It's a good film. I enjoyed my time with it. Maybe, I think I might actually probably put Hoppers higher up on the list with more time, but obviously it's very fresh in my mind, so for right now, it is where it is. Hoppers is very good, though. As for Elemental's a movie I thought was a 6 out of 10 when I first watched it, but that actually grew on me a little bit more over time, which is not usual. I actually upped it to a 7 out of 10 eventually. I think Elemental has some structural issues which prevents it from going higher on this list, but I love the characters. The characters in this movie are some of the best characters Pixar has made in the last decade, and that's what really elevates the score for me. I really cared about pretty much all the characters here, even the side characters, which isn't usual for Pixar movies made post 2010. It was very good, very surprisingly good even. That's why I have it as high on the list as I do. But yeah, no, Elemental and Hoppers to me are two very high quality modern Pixar films, so because of that, they get a pseudo tie here. Although if you really needed me to pick one, I'd say Elemental is slightly better.
Your mother. Oh no, I'm sorry, it was your sister. You know, I can't tell them apart these days.
This movie is about lemon cars conspiring to overthrow the alternative fuel industry by sowing distrust into that entire industry, by causing race cars' engines to explode, by exploiting a weakness found in a certain alternative fuel. If that plot isn't amazing to you, I don't know what is. I'm sorry, film critics of YouTube and everybody who's made Pixar-ranked films and immediately takes the opportunity to just trash on Cars 2 by placing it at the bottom of the list. Cars 2 is so much funnier and so much more entertaining than a solid portion of Pixar's catalog. And to be completely honest, the only reason I can't put it any higher up on the list is because it's not very thematically rich. But the plot is batshit crazy. It's super entertaining. I loved it as a kid, and I hate how much hate this film gets online, honestly. Cars 2, I've always found it entertaining. I still find it entertaining. I think the plot is insane in many regards, and it's just a genuinely good movie. I'm sorry. That's why it's as high as it is. Which, I mean, yeah, I guess literally every single film critic on the planet disagrees with me on that. But at least it gives you some value in watching my Pixar ranked compared to other people, because I do have a somewhat hot take, I suppose. Hey, quick editor's note here. I did not mean to come off as aggressive there with my Cars 2 take. I just really love the film. You're totally entitled to your own opinions on Cars 2. This is my list. I just like Cars 2. That's why it's on my bottom 10. That's why it's on 18. I love Cars 2. I have since I was a kid. I still love it now. You are totally entitled to your own opinion. If you think Cars 2 is the worst Pixar movie, I respect it. I just wanted to kind of defend it here because I don't think many people ever really do defend Cars 2. I just like it. I don't want to come off as mean if you thought that part was a little bit mean, because I think listening back on it, I sounded like I was being a little bit aggressive there. No, you can have your own opinions, obviously. I just like Cars 2.
Wait. Oh no. Get back!
Finding Dory is actually one of the most fun films Pixar's made, I think. It's a very fun movie to watch. I think it has, I mean, obviously it's got all the great characters for the most part, from Finding Nemo minus the Tank Gang. And it has some really good original characters in this movie too, like Hank, the whale shark, Destiny, I believe, yep. And I really love the echolocation beluga, Bailey. He was a really fun character. I can't put Finding Dory too high on this list because in terms of a story, it is damn near a Control-C, Control-V of Finding Nemo. It has a hilarious ending. I know the truck scene is kind of used against this film in many ways. I thought it was funny. Yeah, this is a really good and fun film. That's all I really have to say about it.
Dominant silverback gorilla.
It's still kind of odd to me to this day that Pixar opted for a prequel to Monsters, Inc. as opposed to a sequel, but it is what it is. You know, Monsters University, I think, is in the exact same camp as Finding Dory for me, where it is actually one of the more fun movies Pixar's made, and I would watch it. It's just, you know, doesn't really push the bar in terms of thematic elements that a lot of the best rated Pixar movies on this list do. Monsters University has a lot of fun elements. I enjoyed the scare games. I enjoy watching Mike and Sully's I guess you could say, origin of how they met and whatnot before Monsters Inc. I mean, you know, there's some retcons to the original film in this film, but I think retconning like the 4th grade line and whatnot for Monsters Inc. is okay to get this movie, because I think this movie's pretty good and has a lot of fun moments. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about it. It's pretty good.
McQueen is fading! McQueen is fading! Fading fast!
We obviously talked about how much I loved Cars 2 earlier on in the list as a kid, and Cars 1 I loved even more than that as a kid, and I love even more. And we're not going to be talking about Cars 1 for a long time because it's very high on this list. But as for Cars 3, you know, as a fan of these movies, obviously, I think the third Cars is a satisfying enough ending. I would have preferred they use the alternate ending where McQueen raced for Dinoco instead of the random, like, halfway switch they do in the final cut of the film. I think the alternate ending works better. I do understand why they switched it. They probably just wanted the point to land a bit more, but I think the movie would have been more entertaining had they kept the original ending in mind. But, yeah, you know, it is what it is. I don't really like Cruz Ramirez that much, but I do like seeing Lightning McQueen's character arc throughout this film. You know, I think it's a good conclusion to his story, unless we end up getting Cars 4. We'll see if that ever happens, but yeah, you know, Cars 3 is a very decent movie. A really good conclusion to the Cars franchise for fans like me, I think. Maybe some don't feel that way, but that's how I feel.
What's your name, big fella? That's embarrassment.
Like I alluded to earlier with my discussion of the first Inside Out film, I think Inside Out 2 is a very great continuation of the themes, ideas, and concepts that were introduced in the original Inside Out. However, here I think they're done a lot better and in a much more entertaining and rewatchable fashion. I love all the new emotions they introduce, so they seemed like logical emotions to introduce to a kid as they age. And yeah, I thought the movie was pretty good. The only problem I have with Inside Out 2 is that these animators clearly do not know how hockey works. If you go watch the film, you will see that Riley gets a penalty when the score is 1-0, and then when her penalty ends, it's 3-3. Do y'all know how power plays work? The moment the other team scores, the penalty ends. Like, come on, guys, learn how hockey works before animating. Jesus.
$22 million in 3 fucking hours! Can you believe it?
How can such an obvious cash grab be such an amazing movie? As someone who's kept up with nearly every Pixar movie since I was born, I've watched all of them, that's why the video's being made, but I've kept up with all of them as they released for the most part, and I'm someone who hated Toy Story 4, you know, it was back in number 30 on this list. You'd probably expect me to hate Toy Story 5 at that point. Well, I mean, how could it even be good? It's Toy Story 5. It's a 5th Toy Story. How can it be good? Well, I'm incredibly pleased to report that Toy Story 5 is actually genuinely great. In fact, I think you could even make an argument that it's better than Toy Story 3, which you're going to see a little bit later on in this list. But yeah, I still prefer the first two. The first two you'll see way later on. But Toy Story 5 definitely far exceeded my expectations, I would say. And I think has proved this franchise still has something meaningful left to say. It had great animation, new characters that I liked. Smarty Pants, voiced by Conan, was pretty funny. And yeah. And one thing I'll give this film credit for is it had a subplot that it kept cutting back to that I actually liked to see. Most movies, when they have a subplot that detracts from the main plot, I usually hate it. In this case, I actually liked it. Yeah, very few movies can do that. I'm surprised that the 5th Toy Story of all movies did that. But yeah, no, Toy Story 5 was a very entertaining movie, and I'm actually glad it exists, and I'm even glad 4 exists just for the sake of the fact that Toy Story 5 ended up being pretty good. WALL-E is a film that's aged incredibly. Its message has just become more and more powerful as the years go by, and the environmental issues we face get worse and worse over time. I personally don't really mind the tonal shift between the halves that everybody complains about. I think both are great in their own way. I think the animation's held up very well. It's got 2 very likable characters. I think it's a really good film. The main thing that holds it back for me is the villain, Otto. I don't think is a very good villain. He's very forgettable. I think it would have been more interesting if the villain or the antagonist of this movie had some sort of, maybe like a reason for wanting to abandon Earth rather than I was programmed to do so like Otto had. Like maybe or actually here's a better one I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe Otto doesn't want them to go to Earth because he's going to lose his job pretty much because they're not going to need the ship anymore. There's a very good point the film could have brought up, but now they just use the whole, well, I was programmed to do this, so I want to do this thing. So, yeah, I think they could have probably worked in the villain a little bit more in this movie. Still a very good movie, though.
And Elastigirl is our best play.
Better than me?
Does Incredibles 2 stand up to the amazingness of its predecessor? Not exactly. Those are quite big shoes to fill. Unfortunately, Incredibles 2 is not really anywhere near as close to the same amount of quality as the original film. But that's not to say that this film's bad. This film made it to 11 out of 31. This film's pretty damn good. I mean, I'll take any excuse to see these characters again. I love the first Incredibles movies you'll see later on this list, but Incredibles 2 is very good. I love the story. This film does do one thing better than its predecessor, and it gives all the other members of the family something to do throughout the duration of this film, which the first movie really lacks with. That's more because the first movie is definitely more of a character study than anything else. They don't really get any other... The other family members don't really get any screen time till the very end. But no, Incredibles 2 is still a very good movie, and I'm glad it came out. Obviously, a lot of people wanted to see a sequel to this for many years. And hopefully Incredibles 3 can maybe change things up with maybe like an age up or something. We'll see. Whew, okay. And with that, we finally made it to the top 10 best Pixar movies. I love all 10 of these movies. If anyone told me any one of these 10 was their favorite Pixar movie, I'd understand why. But, okay, my 10th place might be a bit of a shock to some people, but other than that, the top 9 I think are somewhat universal top 10 Pixar movies. But yeah, obviously Pixar's a very good studio, so we're talking about like 8, 9, and 10 out of 10 films here, so the margins here are very thin. But let's get into it. Onward kind of flew under the radar, and it's probably due to the fact that it didn't make much money in the box office, and the coronavirus became widespread in America about like 1 week after this film came out. I mean, I went to see it like literally 1 week before quarantine started, but I think this film's amazing. I mean, like, this film's really, really fun. I don't really have too much to say about it. I just really enjoy it. I think it's got something to do with the characters. The characters in this film, I think, are pretty relatable. They're really fun to watch. I think the story... I loved the story in this movie. Like, the journey they go from step to step. It can be somewhat formulaic, but I love watching these fantasy settings and kind of like a fantasy suburbia. It was really cool, honestly. I just had a lot of fun with this one. And I think that's probably why it ended up so high on my list. But yeah, this is a really fun film. I can't put it too much higher, but I still love it. Put that movie in your Pixar top 10, or so help me. Because Monsters, Inc. is probably the funniest Pixar movie made. I think it has a really creative idea, and unlike Brave, it was a good idea on paper, and it turned into a masterpiece thanks to its execution. Mike and Sully are a great duo, and really helped make this movie as good as it is, honestly. This is probably the second movie of what I would consider Pixar's hot streak. Up until this point, the studio had started with Toy Story 1, which is still to this day one of their best movies in my opinion. Then they had a pretty big quality dip in A Bug's Life. But after Toy Story 2, Monsters, Inc. was the first original movie they made, other than Toy Story, that ended up being really good. And from this point on, for just so many films in a row, Pixar is making hit after hit after hit, which is honestly kind of crazy to think about. So this is definitely the start of a Pixar hot streak, and this is one of the best movies to result from that hot streak. Monsters, Inc., very good movie. Maybe not my favorite. I know a lot of people love to put it at number 1 sometimes, but it's not quite that good for me, but I still have a lot of fun with this one.
Mom, I'm not leaving till Friday. What are you going to do with these old toys?
Toy Story 3 is a powerful, emotionally driven conclusion to the franchise. Is what I would have said like a decade ago. Unfortunately, there's 2. Well, not unfortunately, because I love 5. There is 2 more movies now, but even throwing that aside, Toy Story 3 is still incredibly emotional and gut-wrenching. And it is still a conclusion to the Andy saga, so it is still conclusive in some ways. But yeah, Toy Story 3, I can't say too much about it that hasn't already been said. It is a very powerful, very emotional film that I have a lot of fun watching. But yeah, this is probably one of the most emotional, gut-wrenching films Pixar's ever made up until this point. It's very good.
I gotta find my son Nemo!
I will say, Toy Story 3 and Finding Nemo are very similar quality-wise for me, but I do find Finding Nemo to be a slightly better film. Finding Nemo, I think, is probably a very popular pick for, if you ask what your favorite Pixar movie was as a kid. I bet a lot of people will probably answer Finding Nemo. It's a very good movie. I think what really boosts up its rating for me is how many memorable things happen in this movie. Like shark bait, ooh aha, or pretty much every step of this journey is very memorable. It's a really emotionally driven, very good movie. I think what carries this movie is the story and the characters. If story were slightly less annoying, I think I could probably move this up 2 more places, but unfortunately, it is where it is. It's still a very good movie.
Run! Get some
I think Ratatouille might be a slight bit overrated by a lot of Pixar fans. I don't think it's anywhere near their top 2, honestly. Okay, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. These top 6 movies, I think, are all really good, but I do really like Ratatouille. I think it has good characters. I think it has a good story. I think it's probably their most adult movie, which is really weird for it being a movie about a rat who can cook. What Ratatouille definitely has going for it is it has stellar comedy, great characters, a really good ending monologue by Anton Ego, and the scene of him eating food at the end, I will say, is a very well done scene. Or, well, the scene of him flashbacking to eating food. That I think most people know what I'm talking about if you've seen the movie. But, yeah. Honestly, I'm not really sure what I could say about Ratatouille that hasn't been said already. I think its message of anyone can do anything is a very good message for kids to hear. And there was really no better way to deliver this message than a rat who wants to cook, I suppose. Because I haven't seen really any movie do this message in the way Ratatouille has. It's a very good movie. You gotta start my motherfucking day. We're into the top 5 now, and starting off the top 5 Pixar movies is the movie that started it all, Toy Story. One of my favorite movies as a kid. Wow. I mean, Toy Story 1. What can I really say about Toy Story 1 that hasn't been said? This movie is probably one of the most revered movies of all time. There's so many critics who have already sung the praises of Toy Story, but I'll try my best. Obviously, it revolutionized the entire medium of animation by being the first ever computer animated film. Obviously, nowadays, the animation's a little bit rough compared to other films, so that's to be expected. It's the first ever computer-animated film, after all. I think what really makes this movie worth watching today is the Woody Buzz duo. I think it's done best in this movie. They have the best interactions in this movie by far. And I would also say the comedy in this is probably Pixar's funniest, or maybe second funniest movie. Mainly competing with Toy Story 2 and Monsters, Inc., I would say. But yeah, no, Toy Story 1... very important film to my childhood, and I think it still holds up today.
For even if I'm far away, I hold you in my heart. I sing a secret song to you each night we are apart. Remember?
Yeah, no debate. Coco is easily the best Pixar movie of the last 10 or so years. At least their modern-ish films. This is by far their best. I mean, it has incredible music, an incredible story. It's so emotional. It's really hard to clear this movie without at least shedding a single tear. I love this movie. Yeah. I mean, I think I can't really add too much to Coco that hasn't already been said, but Coco is just such a beautifully well done story, and I love it. Toy Story 2 is my favorite Toy Story, and definitely one of my favorite Pixar movies. I mean, this was a childhood favorite of mine. The best part is how the movie is very engaging and fun to watch, I think. I mean, this is one of the most fun movies I think I've ever watched. This is Pixar's only sequel, actually, for quite some time, until 3 came out 11 years later. This film surpasses its predecessor, Toy Story 1, which is also a really good movie, in pretty much every way. And I think one of the biggest reasons why is that they added Jessie and Bullseye into it, 2 fan-favorite characters, who actually are basically the main characters of Toy Story 5 later on down the road. And yeah, I mean, Wheezy, Belt Buckle Buzz, Zurg. I mean, this movie added so many good additions to the Toy Story cast. I love this movie, and it's easily top 5, if not top 3 Pixar.
100% chance of thunder. Gazooga, stay with me. Gachika.
If you ask me the question, what film did you grow up with? I would answer the question immediately with Cars. Cars is a very special place in my heart. I had a Lightning McQueen bed. I actually still have quite a few Cars toys from back in the day. I was enamored with this movie, and it's a very close second place overall to my first place, which we'll talk about in a second here. I will 100% admit I am very biased on this particular ranking. And yeah, I know Cars' story, it is very similar to Doc Hollywood in many ways, but I mean, this is just such a great movie. really good animation by 2006 standards. I love Lightning McQueen's character arc. I love the characters, especially. I mean, Lightning, Doc, Mater, Sally, Red, Sheriff. Like, there's so many good characters in this movie for a movie about, living cars. There's so many good moments. It's such a memorable story. If you wanted me to, you can probably watch Cars with the audio off, and I could recite the script for you. I know this movie so well. It has such a special place in my heart. It was my favorite movie as a little kid, and it's still one of my favorite movies now. It's a really good movie. I love it. It's definitely, to me, more than worthy of taking my number 2 spot. But just by a smidge, it's not quite the best work this studio's ever made.
There can only be one winner, and you're looking at him.
Wow, what an original opinion. I think The Incredibles is the best movie Pixar has ever made. I mean, what can I really say? The plot is great. I think something else this movie doesn't really get too much credit for. It has a very good score in particular. I think the casting choices are outstanding. Craig T. Nelson and Holly Hunter do a very good job. It has a very good 50s, 60s vibe. You can definitely tell what time period this film's taking place in, while also seeing at the same time, hey, this movie could be happening in the modern day as well. I think Incredibles 2 leans very heavily into the 50s theme and kind of makes it solely a 50s movie, where The Incredibles is a little bit time agnostic, which is very nice. I mean, out of all these movies, I can rewatch The Incredibles over and over and over again. I've seen it more times than I can admit, and it hasn't gotten old any time I've watched it. It's got everything I could have asked for in a movie. It's a masterpiece, it's memorable, it's rewatchable. I mean, I don't know what else I could say that hasn't been said already. The Incredibles is my favorite, and I think it is the best Pixar movie. Well, we did it. We finally made it to the end of this very long marathon. 36 minutes-ish for you guys. About 5 hours of recording for me. So, what a ride. Please let me know in the comments, what's your Pixar ranking list? Maybe let me know what you agree with on my list. Let me know what you disagree with. I think there's some hot takes on here. I think there's some takes people might agree with. I think this list has got a little bit of everything. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and hopefully I'll see you for another video.